Democratic lawmakers concerned about 2022 after defeats in multiple races in Tuesday's elections. One of the issues they're pointing to, inaction on two key bills critical to Biden's legislative agenda, a $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill and a $1.75 trillion social agenda bill. Joining us now is a key lawmaker in negotiations on those bills, Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia. Senator Manchin, it's always a pleasure to have you on. What lesson do you think the Democrats should take from the election results yesterday?
Well, John, first of all, it's always good to be on with you and Brianna. And about the election on Tuesday, the takeaway I have, John, is the country is extremely divided. When you have two blue states that come down after 2 million votes have been cast, and you're down within 100 to 200 in separation, and it looks like that Governor Murphy is going to win in New Jersey, and my friend Terry McAuliffe was not as fortunate in Virginia, and there's just a change, and people are basically saying, come together, work together, and if you can't, we're going to keep shaking things up, and they're shaking them up at the polls.
One of the things that President Biden says may have had an impact in Virginia, at least, was the failure to pass these two large bills. What responsibility do you feel that you have in that?
Here's the thing, John, there's two bills, let me tell you, and there'll be two different bills, but basically we have a China Compete, we call it a USICA bill, $250 billion for this country to basically get up and compete as we always have, the innovation, the research and development. That's been sitting over in the House for quite some time. We passed it with about 90 votes in the Senate, Democrats and Republicans working together. We passed an infrastructure bill, which has been over in the House for over, I think, a couple of months now, and it's $1.2 trillion, and nothing has been done for deferred maintenance in the country for 30 years, 3 decades, and this is the first time. Those would have helped tremendously, showing that together we can. Now we have a reconciliation bill, which is only a partisan bill by our Democratic Party. And that's holding up the other bills that were bipartisan. That's the problem we have, and there has to be some good faith, and we all work together. But if you're wanting someone to agree that I'll sign off on everything you want, and that'll be the way that it'll come, and if I do that, you'll pass the other two. John, that's not the way democracy works. It's not the way the Congress has ever worked, in my eyes. It's not the way we're supposed to work.
So your hands are clean, you think, in these election results?
John, we can all do more. All of us can do a lot more. I'm reaching out to everybody I can on both sides of the aisle, talking to them. They know exactly where I stand. The problem is, John, we're divided. There's 50-50 in the House, in the Senate. How many times has that happened? A complete split, not that many times in history. So we don't have the numbers that FDR had or that Lyndon Baines Johnson had in order to get some major legislation done. We don't have those. So we have to come to realization what we have and deal in good faith that we can do at least something. And I have been very straightforward that pre-K is great. We should do it, 3- and 4-year-olds. I started when I was governor and expanded to just a 4-year-old program in my state of West Virginia, but I think that would be wonderful. Child care, I think that's very needed because it helps people go to work and know their children. I think it basically in-home services, in-home care is something that would be very helpful for people that want the dignity and respect to live in their home as they grow older with a little assistance. There's a lot of things we agree on, but to throw everything under the sun and major policy changes, John, in a bill that no one participates except one party, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, and it was never designed. Reconciliation was never designed for major policy changes. I sat in Bob Byrd's seat, and he put what they called the Byrd rule.
Well, can I just ask you one thing? Can I just ask you one thing? Is there a rule that says that Republicans can't vote for this?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. But they know when there's no participation, you're not going to get either side. The same as we didn't participate in the tax cuts in 2017, John. It was all done with Republicans, and we Democrats were all against that. Don't you think we ought to be able to come to agreement just to fix the tax code?
I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back to the Build Back Better agenda in a moment because I want to stick with the lessons learned from the election if I can.
Okay,
Abigail Spanberger, Congresswoman from Virginia, a Democrat, said of Joe Biden, she says, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal and stop the chaos. What do you think about that?
And I think he can do that. I really do. I believe in President Biden. I still do. and I will always, because he's a good person. He's here for the right reason. He really is in government for the right reason. We just have to work together. We can't go too far left. This is not a center-left or a left country. We are a center, if anything, as a little center-right country, and that's being shown. And we ought to be able to recognize that. And all of my friends on the left are progressives or liberals or whatever. I said, I'm not. I always say that I'm a responsible West Virginia Democrat, and I'm fiscally responsible and socially compassionate. I think most people in the middle feel that way. But I also empathize with the people on the far left and the far right. That's aspirational. But come together, realize what can and can't be done. Don't force basically something that's not going to happen to make people believe it will. Let's look at the finances, John. Inflation. You asked about the election. People are scared to death in West Virginia about the high rising cost of gasoline, of food, now of utilities. The basic needs of life is going up and making more of a burden on them, no matter how much money we send out.
One of the issues that seemed to play a large role in Virginia was education and parents' role in education, and in some cases, the way that America's history regarding racism has been taught in those schools. Now, you were a former governor. You have dealt with schools directly. Why do you think this was a fertile issue there?
I don't know. I think that basically during the debate, and Terry might have, when he said what he said, and it was just taken and they ran with it, you know. We all know that parents must be involved in children's education. You must be paying attention to what's going on in the classroom, and you must be working with both the school that your children go to, the teachers that they have, and your children at home, if you're involved, and you should be. But with that being said, the curriculum is going to be set if everyone agrees, but if they don't, they should speak out. That's what PTO is about. Parent-teachers organizations are for that reason, and that reason is why they've always been involved. And as far as I can remember in education, when I was governor, I always enjoyed having the input of parents and all that. And then we have to make decisions, and then you have to explain those decisions,
right,
what you're teaching.
Do you think Democrats are in the wrong place somehow on education right now?
I don't know. No, I don't really. I hope not. I'm not. I can tell you that. I still look to the parents to see what they think their children should be or how they're reacting back home when they get home from school. And social media has played such a part in their life, John. It's not been a good part as far as I can see, but, you know, to each his own, I guess, on that.
I want to ask you about a few moments that happened on the Senate floor yesterday, if I can. You can't see the video, but I'll give you a really good play-by-play of what happened, and you were there, so maybe you remember. At one point yesterday, and I believe this was about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that was being discussed, you were on the floor, and we see you talking with Kyrsten Sinema, senator from Arizona, I think we can see this, talking to Mitch McConnell and John Thune. What was that about?
You know, I talk to everybody, but I always talk to my Republican friends, finding if there's a pathway forward on anything. I need help. We all need help. We need to work together. And I think that voting is basically the bedrock of democracy. I really do. And I'd like to see us as how in the world, and we talk about this all the time, they give me their point of view. I give them my point of view. Back in 1965, you know, we passed it. And the last time we passed it unanimous was in 2006. What has changed? Why do we not want to protect the polling place? When I was Secretary of State, John, we used to have basically contests with all the secretaries of states, in the organization, who got the greatest turnout. And what did you use? What new things did you do in your state to get more people to turn out, or early voting? That's how I found out about early voting. So when this, for the people, I thought it was a very overreaching piece of legislation that really just didn't get back to protecting the voting rights, protecting people's rights, no one being blocked from voting or making it hard. And we started talking and working all summer long. But you know, in all those talks, John, we never had Republicans involved. That was wrong.
You did. I mean, you keep on hoping for bipartisanship, but you don't seem to find many partners when you reach across the aisle.
But you have to work at it, John. You have to. In today's divided country and divided government that we have, and in divided politics that we have, you have to work a little bit harder. How many people did you see on the floor working and talking to both sides? How many times do you see that, John? Look out.
Yeah.
Ask them how many times they've had coffee with each other. Ask them how many know each other's wives or children and what their pleasures are as far as sports or recreation. Why don't we find out who we are? Why don't we talk to each other rather than talking through and over?
Let me
John, let me just say this. You want to know what's wrong with the place? I go to work in a hostile working environment every day. If you're a Democrat and a Republican's up for election, you're supposed to be against that person. If Donald Duck's running against that person, you're supposed to give money from your PAC to help the other person beat the person that you've been working with. And even sometimes they'll say, can you come campaign against so-and-so? And then we come back on Monday, and here's the person that we've given money against, and here's the person that we're supposed to give, basically go out and work against, saying, hey, could you sign on this amendment for me? Could you work with me on this amendment? How well do you think that's going to work, John? And I've never done that. If we ever do anything to change this place, there should be an ethics law against us campaigning against each other, against us basically sending money to the candidate, against a sitting colleague. These are people you're working with. You have an obligation and responsibility to get something done. And you can't get something done if you're the enemy on the other side every time there's an election.
I want to ask you about one other moment that did happen on the floor, and it happened after you were talking to McConnell and Thune there. Someone came up to you, we think it was Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat from Virginia, seemed to point at you and Kyrsten Sinema. It looked a little tense there. No. Okay, what happened there?
Tim Kaine's the most beautiful person. I swear to God, there's not a purer heart than Tim Kaine. Tim comes in and says, Joe, good work on this, on the election bill, on the John Lewis bill. Good work on that. Let's work some more on this, okay? That's with Tim.
Good.
That was it.
Doesn't sound like a hostile environment as far as Tim Kaine.
Not at all.
And
No.
you were concerned there. Look,
my colleagues have been very, very considerate. They understand, and they know my state, and they know me.
Let me dig in a little bit, if I can, to the Build Back Better agenda and exactly where you are. Because you have made yourself pretty clear on some cases.
Sure.
Paid family leave.
Okay.
The Democrats in the House are putting it back in the bill.
Yeah.
Does that change your view on it at all?
John, I don't think it belongs in the bill, and I'll tell you why. That's a piece of legislation that really is needed from the standpoint if we do it and do it right. When there's participation between the employer and the employee, from the small companies, small businesses that I represent all over West Virginia and all over the country, but basically it should be participation. We can do that in a bipartisan way. We can make sure it's lasting. Right now we're putting something in there that is going to be adding.
Have you tried to find Republican colleagues to work with this on?
Oh, yeah, I've been talking to them. I've talked to Susan Collins, to Lisa, all my friends.
Do you have 10?
They want to do something. Absolutely, they're willing to work with us.
Do you have 10 Republicans to help you on that right now?
Well, basically, we just, you can. No, we haven't gotten to that point yet because it's been part of this. It came up. John, I had not heard an awful lot about that before. I know it's been an agenda on some people. And I think Kirsten Gillibrand has been very committed and dedicated to this. She's worked extremely hard. And I told her, I said, Kirsten, we can work together. And I will. I'm committed to that. And I'll give you my word that we will work on it. We can get something done that's going to be lasting. John, when you do something in reconciliation and you throw all the cost and all the debt towards our national debt and the taxpayers, usually that's flip-flop back and forth as soon as someone else takes over as the majority.
Let me stay on paid family leave,
that,
if I can.
Okay.
In West Virginia, the law is that you can't put a newborn in daycare until they're 6 weeks old, right? 4 weeks of paid family leave, that would help people get to that 6 weeks where they can put their child in daycare. It would be something that could help a lot of working class people. Your constituents, you always talk about the fact you have to be able to go home and explain to your constituents the decisions you're making. How do you explain to a working mother that you're for paid family leave, but you're only going to vote against it because it's part of this process, Bill?
John, because basically the people in West Virginia I work with have common sense. They have responsibilities. They do understand that we do need to pay for these things. They want that to last. They don't want it to be flip-flop back and forth and be used as like a yo-yo. So I'm committed to working on that. We'll get something done. We can if we're committed. You can't just say that if it's not in here, it's gone forever. That's not going to happen. We can get it done. Let's just commit to getting it done. But let's commit to getting it done in the right way so people can build up what time they need. And as they build the time up, they can use it as they desire or as they need. These are things that can be done.
You're willing to spend
Absolutely.
deficit spend.
But John,
you're willing to spend deficit spend on infrastructure, yes, but not.
I'm not willing to spend deficit spending on anything, John. But it was in there. We had to accept what we had at the end there.
But the infrastructure bill will create, by the scoring there, will create a bit of a deficit, or there is a deficit related
John,
to that.
If you look at basically dynamic scoring on that, there's nothing going to be more that we know for certain it's going to grow our economy, because we're going to be paying. That bill goes clear out to 8 to 10 years. No gimmicks was played there. It wasn't like, oh, we're only going to fix the bridges for 2 years, but we're going to take 8 years to pay for them.
On paid family leave, there are many who look at it and say there's a clear economic benefit to paid family leave. You get women back in the workforce, by and large,
Let's get it done,
much
John.
quicker. They pay into Social Security. There's an economic benefit there.
Let's get it done. That's exactly what I'm saying. Let's get it done in regular order through the process. It'll last. It'll
But you're
going to
vote no. You're going to vote against the plan to get it done now.
John, I'm not saying what I'm going to vote. I haven't seen the bill yet. You know, we haven't even worked it in the Senate.
That is fair. We will wait and ask you again when you see the bill on immigration.
Wait until I vote, John, then you'll know.
Okay. On immigration. Democrats, there are Democrats in both the House and the Senate who want to include immigration provisions as part of the Build Back Better agenda. In some cases, it would ban deportation for some immigrants who are here. In other cases, it would create work permits. What's your view on this?
My view basically is the same as it's been since 2013, John. We have to secure our borders. There cannot be calamity and chaos at the borders, which is what you see, and basically not addressing border security. My heart bleeds them. I voted for the 2013 bill. I want a pathway to citizenship for the people who've been here contributing. I'm all for all of those things, but you have to secure our borders. And that's what the people of West Virginia, that's what the majority of people that I talk to across the country want. And the other thing is we can find a way that we can have people that are here for the right reason. I think immigration, we all got here some way. I'm second generation. My grandparents came from Italy. Half on my father's side, and on my mother's side came from Czechoslovakia. So I'm a proud European immigrant, I guess, or descendants of immigrants. I know when you come for the right reason, you work hard, you live by the rules, and you play by those rules, you can make a life for yourself, and we have to give them a pathway for that. And I'm all for that, but basically you have to take care of the border.
But if the Senate parliamentarian says it's okay to be in reconciliation, would you be okay with that?
Reconciliation?
If
she says that?
If the parliamentarian says immigration can be part of reconciliation.
You know, I've said this. When the parliamentarian makes her ruling, that's when I make a decision on that. Okay. Yes, I would be if they make a decision, but I haven't seen that because I think the scrub is going on, or the scrub will go on as we're speaking.
In terms of extending Medicare benefits for dental, which is something that Bernie Sanders still wants very much, and you've been in discussions with him. You and Senator Sanders have had a lot of talks. Is there any middle ground there for you to expand Medicare, or are you just...
John, I love this. I love to expand to dental, to eye, to ears, everything that we've talked about. It'd be wonderful. But guess what? In West Virginia, the lifeline to these people that I represent and people all over this country is that Medicare, Social Security and Medicare are the lifelines to many, many people. That's all they have. And they're told right now by 2026, Medicare will be in default. It'll be unsolvable. And they're told by 2033, the Social Security. Should we be adding more weight to take it down sooner or quicker, or basically they have to pay higher premiums? Let's get our finances in order, John. That's all. You go out and buy everything you see and everything you want, even if you can't afford it. And you say, I'll worry about the debt later? I don't think so.
State and local tax deductions. This was something that was removed as part of the 2017 tax bill. This is something that Northeastern and coastal Democrats have wanted to get some of these deductions back in. There appears to be some kind of an agreement between Senator Menendez and Bernie Sanders, again, to allow for some of these deductions, but maybe cap it at people with income of $400,000. How do you feel about that?
I just heard about that, John. I heard about it last night. I haven't seen it at all, so to speak on it without having more knowledge on it, I really don't know. I know it's a very big price tag to it, and it'll be so we'll just see how they're working it. It depends on how they work it through the program. I have not seen it, so to talk about it, I don't have the knowledge to do that.
Joe Biden, the president, said when he was asked directly, he was still in Europe, he said, where's Joe Manchin going to be on the end here? And President Biden said, in the end, he thinks that you, Senator Manchin, will be a yes. You've talked to him a lot. Why does he think that?
I have.
Why does he think that?
Well, you know what? I think we're cut out of the same cloth, basically, from a legislative process. And I really think Joe Biden is a moderate. I think that he understands. He wants to sit down. He did it for 36 years. People that worked with him that are still in the Senate now tell me that Joe Biden was great to work with. You always knew where he came from, but he was always willing to meet you in the middle. So if we can meet in the middle, he's right. We will find something to be able to move forward. And if we're not and irreconcilable and they have to do what they have to do, we'll understand that. But we're going to continue to work. The president, I believe in Joe Biden. I really do. I think he's the right person, the right place, the right time.
When was
we
the
just
last
have to
time?
work together, and they're just pushing him left. People are pushing him further left, and that's not Joe Biden.
You don't think it's Joe Biden. When was the last time you spoke to him?
Before he left on the trip. We'll be speaking, I'm sure, again.
I'm sure, no doubt. But have you given him reason to believe that you will get to yes?
I think that if you look at my basically public service, I've always tried to bring people together and find a compromise. And I do that up until the end. Sometimes you never get there, but you can't quit trying. And I think that I'll try up until the end. We'll see what happens. But you always want to be positive about this and make something good happen. And there's a lot of good in it. Only thing, John, as I would say again, if the things that we don't get in the bill because we don't agree, and if they want to push it through, then we'll have to see what the vote will be. We'll live with that. If they want to compromise and work on it, and then the things that don't get in that we think are very good, it's going to give all of the progressives, all the people in the caucus progressive, and on the House and the Senate, something to go out and run on in 2022. And maybe they'll elect more people that are progressive or like-minded, and that'll be great. I would be insignificant.
Okay.
I can't wait for that day to come.
I've got to let you go soon. I got two very quick questions for you.
Okay.
Number one, would you be willing to look President Biden, if it got to that point where it didn't get to a bill you like, would you be willing to look him in the eye and say no?
Oh, I think that's the only way you can be. You have to be honest, John.
Okay. And then the second question, not nearly as weighty as that. We understand that the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, has been calling senators to argue for paid family leave. Has she called you?
I haven't talked to her, no.
Do you feel slighted? I mean, that's got to hurt, not getting a call. No, she called Senator Capito, your colleague from West Virginia, and apparently Senator Capito thought it was you on the line, and it was Meghan Markle.
I think Shelley knows my voice pretty well by now. We're good friends.
Senator Joe Manchin, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us. Always
Thanks,
appreciate
John.
the discussion.
Appreciate it. Sure thing.